Killers are leaving and uninstalling Dead by Daylight, and behaviour seem to be doing absolutely nothing about it. What's good, guys? I don't want to waste your time, so I'm just going to get right into it. In this video, I will break down 3 key points on why killers are uninstalling and leaving Dead by Daylight, and how this can actually be avoided if the developers would listen. Recently, I made 2 types of videos. The first was called Behaviour Hates Killer and Here Is Why, and the second was Behaviour Are Worsening Killer Anxiety. These 2 videos came packed with an enormous amount of feedback, which have helped me structure today's video. If you are watching this and you left feedback on any of those videos, just know that I appreciate you and your time for sharing what matters to you. I want to say as well that I am the world record Vecna holder in Dead by Daylight. I have set a 170 win streak on him with over 3,000 hours and 200 plus videos right here on this channel. This is the kind of content I love to make, entertaining and educational gameplay videos. But I also love to have these deep talks. Real talks that help share what people are feeling. So today, this video aims to break down why killers are uninstalling and how behaviour could help stop this. So let's jump into point number 1. Silence. One of the major reasons why killers are uninstalling the game are because they feel like they are invisible to behaviour. Like behaviour have forgotten that although the killer role consists of one person, that one person doesn't matter because the 4 are more and therefore louder. The evidence for this is clearly there for all to see if you dive into the last so many surveys behaviour have released asking for opinions on the game. Each one of those surveys completely failed to give killer players a voice, which is leading to more players simply giving up. As a company, you should treat your entire player base with equality, with fairness and respect. When you only ask one-side questions, you create a divide. You push your community deeper into separation. People see this and it becomes tiring. Behaviour asks survivors frequently, why do you uninstall the game? How do you feel about such things? What makes you happy and unhappy? These questions are great for survivor players, but completely alienate their killer players. This is just completely unacceptable, lazy, and honestly, annoying. Behaviour always comes across as friendly and welcoming to many, promoting diversity and equality anytime they get the chance. But why do they not offer this same kind of diversity and equality to their killer player base? At a minimum, regardless of the motivation, behaviour should, at the very least, be asking both killers and survivors how they feel about the current state of the game. To only ask one side means you cannot properly balance the game because you are refusing to acknowledge the other side of the room. This comes with a warning. No matter how many cosmetics you make for survivors to gain money, it will not matter because when killers are not there to play the game, the survivors will not have a match to start. This is infinitely worse for the game. So this is point number 1. How can behaviour improve on this point? Start speaking to both roles. Be genuine. Involve killers in your discussions and surveys. Start to recognise your entire community. Now let's quickly move on to point number 2. What else could be contributing to killers leaving and uninstalling Dead by Daylight? Killer anxiety. There are hundreds of comments between both my recent videos all referring to people who suffer from what we call killer anxiety. Some didn't even realise they had it before I shined a light on the subject. And what is killer anxiety anyway? Well, my last video touched on this in better detail, so feel free to go and watch that. I will leave a card on screen for it now. But to touch on some points, killer anxiety is the feeling of hesitation. Sometimes people open DBD with the idea to play killer, but they end up sitting on the screen for 20 minutes before either switching and playing survivor or closing the game entirely. If this has ever happened to you, you are definitely not alone. And anyway, why would killers feel compelled to do this? Well, it shares traits with our first point today, the silence, the feeling of having no voice, which further deepens the isolated feeling of playing killer. Then there is the knowledge of what's coming. Most killers that are B tier and below are nothing but hurt by the recent pallet density update, creating boring gameplay for the killer player constantly eating pallets. M1 killers suffer the most with this, whilst high A and S tier killers can work around the problem. So when killers know that there are more changes coming that favour survivors, such as wall hacks after being unhooked, longer endurance and haste, more punishments for tunnelling and slugging, when in the end it is simply punishing the killer playing efficiently. It feels like you are being told that killing survivors as killer is wrong. Like you should really be called the entertainer and not the killer. Almost like the power role of this game is the role that has to play fair, in a player versus player game. It's ridiculous. Players who want to win should not be punished for playing their role efficiently. This would be like punishing survivors for rushing their objective, as in rushing gens. Only there is no penalty for such efficiency. But when the killer plays efficiently, the devs just cave into whiny survivor mains. This is coming from someone that does actively play both roles. I am around 60-40 killer to survivor, and killers have to endure so much. Killers will eat 15 pallets, get blast mined, head-oned, and try their best not to make any more than 2 mistakes, otherwise it could very well make them lose the game. And on the other hand, if a survivor misses one dead hard, they DC. This is one example. But BHVR are catering everything to bad players, and I fundamentally disagree. It's okay for new survivors to be given some help, but to balance the entire game around bad survivors is bad balancing, and anybody with experience will agree it just punishes incentive. Why does it punish incentive? Let me explain. Killers are simply incentivized to adapt to everything happening in the game, being the role that expects everything from you. You simply have to adapt to the extra pallets from the pallet density update, to extra borrowed time, to more base kit perks making their way into survivor hands. You simply just have to deal with all of these things, which is morphing the killer role into a stress test. So the killer is not incentivized to play creative or in ways that give them pressure. Instead, if they do, they will be punished for it. The only thing killer is incentivized to do is play by the rules, otherwise they get punished, which honestly makes the game extremely boring. So on the other side, survivors are not incentivized to work with their resources, their pallets, etc. Instead, they are incentivized to play badly. More pallets from the pallet density update means more survivors are happy to shift W pre-drop. They do not have to do anything to receive more buffs, longer BT, longer endurance, longer haste. They are consistently being buffed, as we said earlier. Any killer B tier or below are just being punished for literally being a weaker killer. So for all the Ghostface mains out there and other weaker killers, the game is just harder for you because BHVR do not care. If they did care, they would be asking the killer role questions on how those players feel. And the silence and the anxiety just builds and gets to the point where people simply do not want to play anymore, so they either play Survivor or they uninstall the game. The only other small segment of killers that do still commit are likely killers who play the S tiers, such as Blight and Nurse for example, which will just further worsen the game because the game will literally become Blight by daylight. So much potential lost. So many goated and cool killers in this game, and only 10% of them right now are viable. All of this, everything I just talked about, all contributes to killer anxiety. Not knowing if the next game will be a full team running meta ready to BM you at every pallet, knowing that if the only way you can pull pressure back is to tunnel and you will be punished for it. Almost like when killers play efficient, BHVR nerf them, and when survivors play efficient, nobody says anything. This is a big part of why killers are simply getting tired, they are worn out, they aren't being given a voice, and it's making a lot of people uninstall and leave Dead by Daylight. Now, with those 2 points together, silence and killer anxiety, what would top this all off with point number 3? Stress. Now, I will start this final point with the obvious. Yes, the killer role should be more stressful than the survivor role because you are indeed on your own against 4 other people. Naturally, you are responsible for all your actions and all your mistakes. However, mistakes are what exaggerate stress, and this brings me to my main point. As killer, when you make a mistake, it can cost you the game. So how does this, with the combination of silence and killer anxiety, create and influence more stress than what is needed? It's because killer players see survivors making mistakes left, right and centre and are given every single kind of hand-holding. Survivors can make 5 mistakes each and still be okay, whereas a killer can make 1 or 2 and be very lucky to still have a chance at winning. BHVR are catering everything towards bad survivors. Survivors who last 10 seconds in chase and then complain about tunneling. They say we have to value player time. Well, what about killer time? What about killers who have way longer queue times to get into a game? What about killers who have to wait for 20 minutes to get a match just to have all the gens rushed in under 4 minutes, so the killer only got to chase 2 survivors? Nobody complains about the survivors doing their main objective, which are the gens, too fast and efficient. But if the killer dares to play efficient and tries to get someone out by making a 3v1 and not a 4v1, suddenly killer players are the worst of the worst. How is the killer player's time respected when they had to wait so long for a game for it to be over in under 5 minutes? When survivors then BM, act like they were good when they were carried by their second chances and had their mistakes taken care of for them? Exactly. Killer time is not respected, killers get shafted, and if more changes continue to come that simply punish the killer for trying to win and by playing efficiently, behaviour will very much fuck their game. Yes, the killer role will naturally be more stressful than the survivor role, but it shouldn't feel oppressive. It shouldn't feel impossible. It shouldn't feel punishing when you are simply playing creatively. Behaviour do not address why killers tunnel survivors. Instead, they add more sticky plaster band-aids. Killers tunnel because the gens can go by so fast, they simply do not have the time to 12-hook everyone. And to be honest, why should killers 12-hook? Only a player who doesn't care about winning would try to 12-hook everybody, because it's the least efficient way for killers to play. If they want to win the game, it would be like asking survivors every time a gen is completed, the killer should be given a free hook. This is stupid. It's a PvP game. Let me repeat that. It's a player versus player game. Yes, I am all for some games being silly and memey, but at the end of the day, if the killer wants to kill the survivors and win the game, we should not be punishing them for playing well. We should be educating survivors on how to identify these strategies and how best to work around them. This is another behaviour problem because the tutorials in this game are dog shit. They do not show enough for survivors and for beginners. You get the point. Killers feel silenced. They have to deal with killer anxiety, and it's not just a little stress, it's oppressive stress. And we wonder why killers are leaving the game. Because they are fucking fed up behaviour. Fed up of not being listened to. Fed up of being punished for simply playing their role well. Fed the fuck up with the constant toxicity, the constant ignorance from you. Killers have been asking and complaining for the longest time to deal with survivors who BM in the exit gate. Now me personally, I don't care and I will push people out if I've had a bad game, but it's the fact that killers will break any pallets remaining at the end of the game and wait for survivors to leave because maybe they just don't want to face the toxicity, and the survivors will wait until the last second before they leave. So not only did the killer have an insane wait for a game, they then had a bad game, get punished for it, and then get held in the game and forced to deal with BMing just to end the game as you forced them out. Why aren't behaviour addressing this? Oh yeah, because killers aren't respected, are not important, and if you want to change that, you have to take this advice. Start listening to your killer players, just as much as your survivor players. Make them feel heard, understand the frustrations, and implement the necessary changes. This won't just stop killers leaving, it will also contribute to the overall health of the game. All killers should be valid in this game. The bugs that plague a multitude of killers should be addressed, and we need to be implementing far better tutorials for survivors to help them be better, and if they refuse to get better and constantly DC, well, it's their loss and the DC penalty should be much more punishing. Catering the game to new players or bad players might seem like the wisest choice, but it will only push away the people who have proven themselves loyal to your game, who have stuck around, who have promoted your game, bought your cosmetics. We need to stop ignoring the veterans who do everything for your game behaviour, and stop praising survivors who constantly DC and treat your game like ass. Even if there are more survivors in Dead by Daylight, even if 1/3 of the entire game is only killer players, without that 1/3, your game wouldn't work. It's time to start listening to killers just as much as survivors. Make sure you include everybody. And if anybody wants to share any more of their thoughts or opinions, please do so and feel free. Feel empowered to do that underneath this video in the comments section. I really appreciate you guys. We always try and keep it real. If you want to come and follow me over on Twitch, you can do. That'd be awesome. I love making these videos to spread awareness and to join the voices of people and to also give other people a voice because I genuinely care about this game. All of this comes from a place of love. I love Dead by Daylight and I want to see it thrive, and it's a shame that we feel so let down. It's a shame we feel so ignored. Thank you so much for watching this video. Take it easy guys, and I'll see you in another one. Peace.